The views and opinions expressed on the following program may not necessarily reflect the views of the staff, management, or board of Hope Media Group and KSBJ. It's what's happening around us, in our town, suburb, city, in our community. It's Community Beat with Kim Kasi McKee on 89.3 KSBJ.
Well, hello and welcome to Community Beat, where we're keeping you attuned to the topics that are impacting our local communities and helping them to thrive. I'm your host, Kim Kasi McKee. It's a new year with new ventures and new opportunities. For the past few weeks, we've been introducing you to some new people, causes, and organizations that may become a part of a new beginning for you in some area of your life. Today's guests have a lot to share with us about new beginnings, new thoughts related to our giving. Maybe there's something new God wants to do in and through you in the area of giving of our tangible resources. Joining me today are Bert Smith and Raimie Hodges of National Christian Foundation. Welcome, Bert and Raimie. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Kim. Glad to be here.
Well, just to tell you a little bit more about my guest, Bert Smith is president and leader of the Houston office for National Christian Foundation. His background is in law, entrepreneurship, and prison ministry. He's a native Houstonian. Wow, that makes two of us, Bert. Bert and his wife, Gwen, have 3 young adult children and a 3rd grandchild on the way. Congratulations. Bert is an active member of St. Martin's Episcopal Church. Now, Raimie Hodges is a relationship manager and serves the givers of National Christian Foundation. Her background is in finance. She's passionate about caring for the most vulnerable among us. She enjoys adventure and most things outdoors. Her dream is to travel the world, spreading the love of Christ. Raimie has a 2-year-old German Shepherd Husky pup. She's training to become a service dog, and she is an active member of Encourager Church. So once again, welcome to our guests, Raimie and Bert, and thank you so much for joining us. And we'll just start right out of the gate with learning more about NCF Houston. So, Raimie, let's start with you.
Thank you so much, Kim. So excited to be here. So here at National Christian Foundation, we inspire, simplify, and magnify biblical generosity. We are a national public foundation that started in 1982 in Alpharetta, Georgia, and our Houston office came to life in 2007 with a great group of people. Lloyd and Gail Benson, David and Bonnie Weekly, Vince and Patty Elliott, George and Ashley Clark, Jeff and Dolly Thomas, just to name a few.
Yes, that is awesome.
Yeah, it's been an exciting journey over the past 15 plus years. We've actually been blessed to be able to mobilize almost $800 million just in Houston alone, resulting in grants to almost $700 million to churches and other ministries, many in Houston, but also around the world. We're able to do that really because we offer creative solutions. Mm-hmm. Sometimes giving can be very simple, and we try to keep it simple, but also offer solutions which can make it more administratively and tax efficient. We maintain a team of experts in charitable giving. They get up every morning thinking about charitable giving, and they go to sleep praying about charitable giving every day. What we're hoping to do is to help each individual giver along their personal journey of generosity, developing a strategy so that they can be thoughtful and wise in their stewardship.
I love that. A personal journey of generosity. Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about that generosity. Sometimes people believe you have to have a lot in order to give. What does the Bible say to us? What are some biblical principles surrounding giving?
Well, I think, first of all, we need to accept that the Bible teaches us that God is the creator and he owns everything. So we start there. We are simply, much like Adam and Eve, given the opportunity to be stewards, wise stewards of what he has created and the ways in which he has gifted us. I like to think about generosity in the context not just of giving money, but the way we live. Each of us is gifted very differently, uniquely. And some of us have been blessed with greater financial resources that we steward, manage. Some of us have great talents of other sorts. It could be mentoring. It could be speaking. I mean, we all individually have gifts. And one of our goals is, while we focus on the financial stewardship aspect, by introducing and encouraging people to find the ministries to which they believe God has called them to serve, to become more deeply engaged with those ministries as well.
One of the things that I have found, Bert, in being a native Houstonian through the years, most of my career has been in the nonprofit arena. And I have been blessed to see the best of the human spirit. I have seen people just responding to God and meeting the needs, whether it's for the homeless or for people who have been incarcerated. I mean, just whether they are donating coats and jackets for the homeless or suits for a man that's transitioning out of prison. But I've read that Houston is known to be one of the most generous cities in the nation. And I don't know if there's statistics to back that up, but I can say I've certainly seen generosity displayed in many, many ways. And so one of the things that you mentioned was the idea of wise stewards. Wise stewards. If you'll speak to that, how important is it for people to do due diligence, to want to be wise and make sure, because now we're living in a time too where there's so much scandal around giving, or so much there's so much fraudulence. I'd like to say that, where you'll get a call from someone who says they're raising money for this cause or that cause. How important is that stewardship piece?
Well, it's very important. It's really critical. We assist our givers, and Raimie can elaborate on this, in several ways, but we maintain a database of tens of thousands of charities, and at least once every 15 months, we have a research group that checks up on those ministries and other charities. But really just to confirm the basics. Are they still in good standing with the IRS as a 501c3? That's the primary check we make. But in addition, we will check, especially newer proposed ministries, we'll check to see if they're operating within NCF's sort of spiritual guardrails, so that our givers can have confidence when they recommend a grant to any ministry in our database. Those basic checks have been made. That's really just the starting point for an individual's investigation, if you will.
Okay.
Yeah, and to speak to that too, we're so involved in the community and getting to know these charities and meeting them in person and just kind of understanding how the organizations work. We know them, right? We're in community with them. So they're in the database. We look at GuideStar. We check them out that way, but we also know them personally. So.
Oh, that is amazing. So say a little bit about that. How does National Christian Foundation work? So a person or an organization will donate. Just kind of talk through how that process happens.
Well, we are a donor-advised fund, which means we are not like a typical private foundation. Most people, when they hear the word foundation, they're thinking of a foundation that was set up usually by one person or one family, and it is then that person or that family that makes all the decisions around how the money contributed to the foundation is invested and what churches and other charities will receive grants. National Christian Foundation is different. We are a public charity and not a private foundation. So when you or I or Raimie or anyone makes a gift to NCF, that's a contribution to a giving fund that has my name, your name, or Raimie's name on it, typically. Okay. And then we are the ones who the individual donor is the one who recommends to NCF how the funds will be invested while they're in that account, and very importantly, to what church or other charity those funds will be granted out.
Okay.
So it's not NCF that makes the granting decisions. It's the individual donor who recommends where those funds will go.
I see. Okay, awesome. Thanks for clarifying that.
It's like a charitable checking account. So it makes giving simple. And then we have access to a team of experts in charitable giving that can help plan for that giving strategy. And, we really focus on non-liquid gifts to steward the assets well for money that may have gone to taxes will now go to the charities.
Okay.
So that's something that we want to focus on too.
We also have the capability to allow a giver, a donor, to set up regular monthly contributions so that any one of us can establish a discipline of giving every week, every month, every quarter, whatever, and then prayerfully and thoughtfully decide at some point in the year where to grant the money that we have contributed. That's a tool, that process, those regular contributions, is a tool that can be used obviously with husband and wife, but also with children and grandchildren to get them involved and engaged in the discipline of good stewardship.
So give me a couple scenarios of the types of people who would benefit from your services. And I'm thinking, what would it be? A person that says, I want to contribute to a cause or a charity, but I don't even know where to start. Would that be a good candidate?
Yes, absolutely. We don't necessarily, we prayerfully guide them through that process of where they are. So we start with the giving strategy and we talk with them. They can browse our site with thousands of charities that are on there, but we don't really guide them to who to choose. That's going to be something that they pray about and ask God. And so we can come alongside of them there. But the individuals that we will work with are individuals, business owners, financial advisors, charities, churches, things of that nature.
Awesome. Say a little bit about the idea of a giving strategy.
Okay. Well, most people today, most of us have some sort of financial strategy, either by design or by default. I hope it's by design. But that incorporates current income as well as current and future needs, retirement, medical planning, whatever. But very few of us have yet adopted a giving strategy. And yet, as stewards of what God has asked us to manage, we have a responsibility to be wise over our giving as well. And one of the consequences of not having a giving strategy is that we may not be really thoughtfully and prayerfully discerning how the Spirit is leading us to give. And as one of the problems from that is we may be leaving money on the table because our gifts are not as tax efficient as they could be. So there's an aspect of discernment of where the gifts would be made or the grants would be made, but also how, which can significantly impact the after-tax consequences.
Okay.
I always like to say, as a former financial advisor, typically people are planning, 3 months or 3 years out. You go to a financial advisor and they say, well, you need to plan 30 years. Well, you go to God and he says we need to plan 30 million years. Right. So,
wow.
So, just putting that into perspective, how important it is to consider how we're stewarding our assets.
If you're just tuning in, we are speaking with some guests from National Christian Foundation. And these are some folks who, with the wisdom of God, help to give some guidance, some stewardship to those folks who are looking to be a blessing, to use the resources that God has given them to make a difference in our city. And also, I understand National Christian Foundation is beyond Houston, Bert.
Oh, yes. Headquarters are just outside Atlanta, but we now have offices, I believe, in 33 cities around the country.
Wow.
So it has a pretty large footprint.
That is amazing. And so there are some specific ways that you serve donors, and then there are some specific ways that you serve charities. Can you share a little bit about some of those ways?
So we meet the donor where they are.
Okay.
Right. And then we help them with the giving strategy. We come alongside them for that. We set up their donor advised fund or charitable checking account, and we immerse them into a community of givers that have similar values as them. And, we have the Saturday 7 and a newsletter where they receive that and see the stories of so many families across the nation that are giving and serving. And, increased faith equals increased giving, which equals increased joy. And it's just such a beautiful community to be a part of and just see, we increase faith by hearing and seeing, reading the word, but also seeing these testimonies. And it's just beautiful. And so it's a great community to be a part of. And, we also have a library of generosity. We educate our givers on non-cash, non-liquid giving. And there's even investment options. So when we're giving, there's investment options. If you decide you want to give, grow, and grant, there are options there that we can talk about. And then also what I'm really passionate about is the biblical investing, biblically based investing. It is something we're spearheading, and I think is just a great tool to consider. And so,
share a little bit about that biblically based investing.
So we've just opened up options for biblically based investing. And so now when somebody wants to give, grow, and grant, as opposed to just give and grant, we have that option to invest in mutual funds that have screeners that will screen the companies to make sure they align with our values. So, and there's just not a whole lot of options out there. As a financial advisor, I didn't see a lot of that in the landscape in the industry. And so I'm really excited to see that we're part of that.
Wow. I love what you said about increased faith equals increased giving equals increased joy.
Yes.
So it really is just a ripple effect. And
it is.
Kim, I also think you asked about charities and how we work with the charities, and that's a really fun part of our work. We can help ministries in several ways to really kind of turbocharge, we hope, their development efforts. We can also help them operationally by making it easier for donors to make gifts to the charity without really burdening the charity with more administrative. An example is a charity can open a fund, a ministry fund at an NCF, and we can help them create a Donate Now button.
Okay.
And put it on their website.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then when a donor clicks there, any contribution made goes directly to the ministry fund. We handle all the paperwork and the receipting of that gift, so the charity doesn't have to worry about it at all.
Wow, that's
They just
awesome.
get to see the funds accumulate in their account and then request whenever they like for those accounts in their giving fund at NCF just to be sent directly to their bank account.
Wow.
A circumstance in which that can be especially helpful is if they're running a special campaign, like a capital campaign, right? Well, they've got their ordinary giving, plumbing, and infrastructure. Well, for this special campaign, they can open a giving fund at NCF and then direct all of their givers to that. And so we can receive not only cash, but marketable securities, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, all of that sort of stuff, which are common in more, in capital campaigns.
Sure.
As well as non-liquid assets like real estate and business interests and all sorts of things that can hold enormous value that's not yet been unlocked for the benefit of charities.
That is amazing. What does from your experience, what are some things that prospective donors look for when they consider where to invest? Just from the standpoint of a charity
where to grant their money.
You go. Where to grant. Thank you. So what does prospective donors look for when they consider where to grant their donations?
I'll give an answer and then hope Raimie will augment that.
Okay.
I hope that they will arrive at a granting decision both thoughtfully and prayerfully. And what I mean by those terms is I really want each of our givers to use the brain that the Lord gave them to do their due diligence. We do some, and they will do more.
Yes.
And decide that this is a place that is handling funds responsibly and doing good works according to biblical practices and standards. That's the thoughtfully part. The prayerfully part is just to really go deep in prayer and find out if that's where the Spirit is directing them to give. We can't obviously control that. We don't want to.
Right.
Because that's part of the journey for that individual.
Absolutely.
And therein lies the joy.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So much joy. And what I've found since I've been at National Christian Foundation is impact is important. Certifications are important, like the ECFA, which is the Evangelical Council for Financial Accountability. So transparency, things of that nature. And just purpose and passion, people typically align with that. That's what's important to them. Connection, being connected to what they're serving to. So those are just some of the things that I've seen.
It sounds great. So do you have any particular success stories you can share with us about people?
Yeah, I have 100 Shares Houston with Nancy Lisenby. They're a wonderful women's organization that pulled together 100 partners a year to raise $100,000 to
all women.
100
women.
100
right?
women, yes, that's right.
Wow, 100 women, $100,000.
Yes, and it's wonderful. And the purpose is for impact. So they want to choose with a rigorous vetting process, just a ministry that needs that. They're trying to find a building or they're trying to start a program. And we're basically the plumbing for them, so we help keep them going. We do a lot of the administrative work and help with the giving in that area. So yeah, they've been just a great charity to be a part of.
That sounds amazing. Bert?
So what comes to mind in terms of a success story for me is the story of a man and his wife who some years ago made an investment in a fund, an investment partnership that uses their and other investors' capital to go out and buy royalty interests, oil and gas royalty interests. And then they aggregate those small interests into what become very large interests and then make distributions of the royalties to the investors. This couple decided that they wanted to give about 10% of the investment that they had made in this fund. It was valued by an independent appraiser at about $650,000. So it was a very generous gift. Their desire, though, was to make the gift and use the cash flow from these distributions they received that would now go into their giving fund at NCF to use that to grant to their church and other charities. And you might ask, well, why wouldn't they just do that personally? Well, they could, but we ran the analysis, and because we are a public charity, we have preferred tax treatment under our very generous tax code, okay? And by giving the gift, the asset to NCF into their giving fund, they could wind up giving far more to the ministries that they love. In fact, from this gift alone, we've projected that they would wind up granting at least $77,000 more over a period of 5 years if they go through NCF than they would if they did that personally.
Wow.
But wait, there's more. In addition to that, that couple and their family are better off by over $100,000 over that 5-year period. And so if they chose to do so, they could write checks or make additional gifts through NCF for that increased value that they have as a result of this very tax-efficient gift. So it's just an example of how we can help individuals who have generous hearts learn and actually do be more generous.
That's beautiful. How can we be praying for the ongoing work of such a great ministry as National Christian Foundation?
Well, I think first and foremost to pray for our givers. They're so generous of everything, time, talent, treasure. So just pray for abundant blessings for them, for partnerships with National Christian Foundation, that we would grow community in our city, and just for a greater faith, that greater faith that brings greater giving and greater joy.
I would ask everyone to pray for abundance, especially abundance in the givers that we serve. We serve many, but not far enough in the greater Houston area. And when I think about the potential that is here in our very generous community to turbocharge all of that generosity, it is enormous. So more givers is what I'd like to see.
Sure. And, one of the times that we see the generosity of people on display oftentimes is the wake of disasters.
Right.
But the point we're making today is that it's about generous living,
Yeah.
Right.
like you said at the
Amen
beginning,
to that.
which I thought was so awesome, that it's not just something we do on Sunday morning or something that we do on a whim or a heart tug,
Right.
but that it just becomes a lifestyle. And I believe I read somewhere in Scripture that it is more blessed. I think I read that.
Yeah.
That it is more blessed to give than it is to receive. So how can folks get in touch with you to learn more about NCF? What would be the best way if they want to connect with you for your services?
So they can go to ncfgiving.com/Houston, or they can reach me directly at my email at rhodges@ncfgiving.com.
Excellent. Is there anything else you want to add?
There's definitely something burning on my heart.
Please,
I wanted
go.
to share that.
Go ahead.
It was just in regard to the biblical truths and principles. It's so important for us to recognize God's great generosity towards us, and for that to be where our heart of giving is, right? I mean, it started with creation, relationship, his son sacrificed for us, his Holy Spirit, and then victory in Christ. And so there's just such a great love of our Father that we just need to tap into that, right? And understand that and see that would then create that heart of giving. And then that's where the love comes from, right? I mean, the attitude is paramount in giving. It's really important. So, might as well not give it all if it's not coming from the right place.
Wow. That's right. God being the ultimate example that he so loved the world that he gave, and his giving has never stopped.
Yeah.
So we get to be
Exactly right.
just stewards of whatever he places within our trust. And thank God for ministries and organizations like National Christian Foundation for what you do in helping folks to steward the gifts that God has placed within their trust as well. So again, we've been joined today by Bert Smith, president of National Christian Foundation's Houston office, and also Raimie Hodges, who's the relationship manager with the National Christian Foundation. And to learn more about this great organization in our city, Raimie's going to tell us the website to go to learn more about National Christian Foundation.
It is ncfgiving.com/Houston. And my email address is rhodges@ncfgiving.com.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank both of you for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Be blessed.
You too. And as always, we want to thank our wonderful audience for joining us. And we hope you'll join us again next week for another edition of Community Beat. I'm Kim Kasi McKee on 89.3 KSBJ.
Thanks for joining us for Community Beat with Kim Kasi McKee. Join us every Saturday morning at 5:30 on 89.3 KSBJ.